let's start with a chat about Chelsea then, and let's talk everything going on behind the scenes at Stamford Bridge this summer. A lot of sponsorship talk going on around the club. Obviously, they're in need of a front of shirt sponsorship and a sleeve sponsorship this summer ahead of the 2023-24 season. Many reports this week coming out that they're in advanced talks with Stake over a £40 million deal. What are your overall thoughts on Chelsea being able to strike a deal of that value without Champions League football, obviously?
If it's a 1-year deal, I think it's quite spectacular from Chelsea's point of view. Ultimately, sponsors are looking for eyeballs, and they're looking for eyeballs both from the Premier League and European football. So this would be an excellent deal from Chelsea's perspective. Stake are probably paying 10 to 12 million pounds for Everton. So to get 3 times, 4 times the price for broadly the same amount of exposure, because it only be shown on Premier League, would be an extremely good deal from Chelsea's point of view.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously it's with Stake, which are obviously in the gambling industry. We know that the Premier League voted to ban gambling sponsorship from, I believe it's 2025-26 onwards. What are your thoughts on Chelsea opting to do a short-term deal with a company that they'll no longer be able to be partnered with in a couple of years' time?
Well, I mean, there's gambling and there's gambling, and Stake are a pretty grubby organisation. They're based in the Netherlands Antilles. They're not just a gambling organisation; they're a crypto casino. So it's taking one form of gambling, which is cryptocurrency, and multiplying it by another, which is casino gambling. They do seem to have been quite successful. I think they've paired with celebrities, high-profile individuals. So if they're going to get into bed with Chelsea, you can understand the benefits there. I don't think it reflects particularly well on Chelsea, but under Todd Bowley, they seem to be going down the route of, if it's not illegal, we'll do it. Disappointing, I'll be honest. That they have had some fairly blue chip sponsors in the past, and to be seen to be going down this route it seems to be a bit of a race for the bottom from my point of view. But it could be that where we are with Chelsea at present, every penny counts. Clearly, the arms sponsor deal with Whalefin, that didn't prove to be as anticipated in terms of the length of the deal, although it was, again, very lucrative. So we wait to see. Ultimately, it's legal, but a bit tawdry. Yeah,
definitely. And just off script a second, I mean, would you consider it good news for Newcastle, considering they had there was a lot of speculation around the fair market value of their new deal with Zeller, the £25 million deal with Champions League football? Do you think Chelsea's ability to strike a £40 million deal in the same category would push Newcastle and allow them to sign a bigger deal, providing they continue to qualify for Champions League?
Yes, if we're benchmarking against other clubs, the people at Newcastle will be absolutely delighted with this, because it shows that you can get multi tens of millions signed up with high profile sponsors, even if you're not qualified for Europe. So I'm sure everybody's monitoring this very, very closely. And what we're effectively doing is we're slowly ratcheting up what are the market rates for particular tiers of clubs. If you're a Nottingham Forest, you can't get £10 million as they saw last season. But I think Amanda Staveley and her team will be absolutely delighted, and I suspect they might even be thinking, well, perhaps we went in too low if they're only getting 25 million for their front of shirt deal from Sailor. But it does give them an opportunity to renegotiate in due course and to push that further upwards.
Yeah. Backtracking to Chelsea then, obviously in advanced talks with Stake, but there are reports that they were chatting to Paramount about a sponsorship deal. However, that has been blocked by the Premier League due to concerns over upsetting TV rights holders. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's okay for TV rights holders and the Premier League to have a say on who Chelsea can sponsor, basically, who Chelsea can be sponsored by?
This seems very strange because Paramount Plus, they sponsored Milan or Inter for the Champions League final. There were no objections from Sky Italia. So why are Sky objecting to this? And also, Paramount Plus is delivered via a Sky platform on occasions. It's not a rival as such because it doesn't have Premier League rights as far as the UK is concerned. So I think this is I think it's a story which Chelsea secretly will be delighted with, in the sense that it allows them to go to an organisation such as Stake and say, well, yeah, we were trying to go with a more ethical front of shirt deal, but the Premier League won't let us. So therefore, we've had to go down market from sort of an ESG point of view, and take up a deal elsewhere. So it plays into Chelsea's hand. It certainly plays into the narrative that they've tried to do the right thing. And if that is the case, you can have a degree of sympathy for Chelsea's negotiating team, because they probably felt that they got quite the way through the deal in terms of negotiations with Paramount Plus, and now have had to go elsewhere.
Yeah, I think they were also in talks with Allianz as well, Chelsea, but it seems that the money from Stake is just much higher. So yeah, that's front of shirt sponsorship covered, but also Chelsea also looking for the sleeve sponsorship, as we've briefly covered. There doesn't seem to be much talk about that at all. Do you anticipate them being able to strike a deal before the start of the 23-24 season?
Yeah, Chelsea are a huge brand. They've got a big global fan base, certainly concentrated in certain sort of niche markets. So there will be a deal. I don't think it will necessarily be as lucrative as Stake.com unless they find somebody else in that particular industry willing to give them a sponsorship. But then that might actually cause ructions with the front of shirt sponsor. If you've got two people from broadly the same industry competing for attention, Chelsea will have a deal, provided they're sensible on price, and that will go into the overall budget.
Yeah, and then moving on to a topic that's been quite hotly discussed this week, a lot of Chelsea players being linked with moves to Saudi Arabia. Obviously, there are links, I believe, between PIF and the Clear Lake Capital. What are your thoughts between the links? Do you think there are? Do you think there's any potential wrongdoing here?
I think the links are quite tenuous. It would be good to have some form of clarity coming from Chelsea with regards to the ownership and the ownership links to PIF. If PIF of 1% of Clear Lake Capital, as has been suggested in some quarters, then I really don't. I think this is sort of making a mountain out of a molehill. The Saudi domestic market is very frothy. To be fair to Chelsea, Chelsea took advantage of the Chinese Super League a few years ago and got really excellent prices for the likes of Ramirez and Oscar. And I think that they're just going to repeat this here. Yeah, they've got players who clearly are part of a bloated squad, so things need to be trimmed down. From the players' point of view, it's an opportunity to get very lucrative contracts. And for all the criticism that's levelled at Chelsea, Chelsea have been excellent at generating money from player sales over the last decade, and I think this is just a further step. That they've got the inventory, they've got excess inventory, and it's horrible to use that word in respect of young men and their careers. The Saudi market is a buying market. Chelsea's in a selling position. There's logic between the two parties getting into bed together.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, we know that Chelsea have spent big in the last couple of windows since the takeover from Todd Bowley. Obviously, player sales will be crucial to financial fair play. I mean, how important do you think that could be if they could get a few deals done with Saudi Arabian clubs this summer for Chelsea's financial fair play limits?
I think it will certainly be of assistance. Yeah, we've seen Chelsea already go into the market and sign a striker, although that deal officially doesn't kick in until the 1st of July, which means that it won't impact upon Chelsea's 22-23 accounts. If you take a look at Chelsea over the course of the last 5 years, in 2018, They had player profits of 113 million. It was 143 million in 2020. It was 123 million in 2022. Chelsea are excellent at generating money from player sales. And that has always contributed towards them being in compliance with financial fair play. I think there's a couple of sort of black holes in the financial fair play position relating to the freezing of the assets of Roman Abramovich. Chelsea will be claiming that impacted upon their ability to generate revenues in 21-22. They will say that they incurred additional costs with regards to the takeover. You've only got to look at the remuneration paid to the highest paid director. £35 million was picked up by Marina, and I think Bruce Buck got an 8-figure sum as well. So there's large amounts that have gone out, which people are perhaps ignoring because financial fair play is assessed over a 3-year period, and people's memories don't tend to go back that far. But you combine COVID and Abramovich leaving. I think Chelsea have probably got more wiggle room than people give them credit for.
Yeah, definitely. And onto Gary Neville's comments this week, then he's been very outspoken about the Chelsea's links to Saudi Arabia, or Chelsea's players' links to Saudi Arabia, I should say. Do you think it's on the Premier League to kind of investigate this thoroughly and give a bit more transparency over the situation?
Well, for anybody that's read the Premier League handbook from cover to cover, and I wouldn't recommend it, by the way, but I have done that. There is a specific area which deals with fair market value transactions, and that specifically applies to both commercial deals and player transfers. So the Premier League will be looking at the prices that Chelsea have generated from these player movements. And remember, I think to date it's only N'Golo Kante that's gone, and he was out of contract anyway. So therefore that'll be no impact as far as generating a profit is concerned. I don't foresee this being much of a problem. It's actually beneficial to Chelsea in the sense that if they get a decent price for the player, more importantly, they're shifting wages off that wage bill. The wage bill was £340 million in 2022. That's really not sustainable in a year in which they're not competing in Europe. And if you can get 4 or 5 players off, if you take a look at Chelsea's average wage, which was £158,000 a week in 2022. Even if the player's just on 2/3 of that, that's £10 million a year. You get rid of 4 players, that's £40 million off the wage bill. You'd also expect there to be step downs for non-qualification for Europe. I think Chelsea are actually in not too bad a position. And until we see the prices, I wouldn't necessarily be critical. It's a logical and smart move from their point of view, and it's exactly what they did with the Chinese market a few years ago.